I'm Chad Ruthermond,
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
and welcome to NOCLIP Pocket. Man has made his match. Now it's his problem. Today, we're going to be talking about Gemini Rue, a game that was developed by Joshua... I need a pronunciation guide on this podcast. A game that was developed by Joshua Neumberger, published by Wadjet Eye Games, and was released in 2011 on Windows, 2013 on iOS, and 2014 on Android.
But first, if you give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated.
So this is, in every sense of the word, a very classic point-and-click adventure game. But one that has, I guess, a couple of wrinkles. But my experience with the game, and you can chime in if you think I'm full of shit on this, is that this game is so narratively focused that it shouldn't have needed any mechanical wrinkles to set itself apart, really. I find this game interesting, and I like the game. And when I think about it, I think about what happens in the game and not about the fact that there's like a weird shooting mechanic.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's the shooting mechanic is the one that stands out the most. But like I do like that you can like switch back and forth between the characters, and I think like maybe I just like point and clicks are kind of like comfort food, but like I kind of like all the point and click trappings as well. But yeah, it does kind of feel like it's trying, aspiring, reaching for a little bit more. You just kind of end up with like a tin of mixed nuts with not enough mixed. It's mostly peanuts.
Yeah. But I like peanuts because peanuts are comfort food, and in this metaphor, peanuts are the point and click mechanic.
My perfect metaphor that I made.
Yes. But so if I can call the Guinness Book of World Records for most coherent metaphor.
Yeah. JJ's not here to make the food analogies, so I got to do it.
Yeah, you're picking up the slack. Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. Mostly because you were agreeing with me.
That's what's important.
That is. But yeah, it is. It has such a classic point and click thing, and like I do kind of want to go over the mechanics first because I feel like that's not where the depth is really, and so we can get through it and then jump on. But the actual point and click stuff is, I would say, medium as far as like the genre goes, but the game is so short that it never really grates on you. Like we both know the pain of the 11th hour, like Grim Fandango, freeze the Jello situation. Like it's something that when you've played the game for a period of time, it's almost tiring to deal with the more abstract adventure game stuff.
Yeah, we've talked about this with RPGs before, but it does crop up in just a lot of older games, like a late game difficulty spike. And yeah, in point and clicks is definitely something that is just exhausting.
Yeah, you're like, man, I feel like I've done so much to get to this point. Why do I need to put my brain into overdrive to close out the last like bit of this? And yeah, and to its credit, like this game does kind of have that, in my opinion, in the form of the weather tower, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Segment, but it's a short segment and it isn't too bad. Like in comparison to like it's kin. There it is.
It's ilk.
It's
and
ilk
it's
and
kin.
it's kilt.
Yeah. It's very stylish and fashionable.
So I never found myself really like mad at the mechanics of this game.
Yeah, it's length, like its brevity, I think, helps it out a lot.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, like it almost kind of makes it feel more like authentically like the games it's emulating too. I think there's something about it, and we'll get more into that because we want to do mechanics right now. But like, yeah, I think that definitely does it a lot of favors. It feels like more focused somehow, even though its focus is a little like divided.
It's spread a little thin.
In reality, yeah.
Yeah. There's this whole segment of the game where when you're playing as like the detective,
Asriel.
Asriel, there are these like terminals that you can access that have a search bar, and you can type stuff into them and like search things up and find it out, which is a really interesting piece, like a thing to do.
Yeah, I really like that element. It feels so like such a good idea for like a Blade Runner cyberpunk like detective game, but yeah, you don't really get to use it that much.
Yeah, it feels a little underutilized.
Yeah.
It's like there's not enough free form investigation in this game in order to like call it a like an investigation mechanic. It's like a problem solving mechanic. And I was a little bummed about it because I really like it as a concept. It's not the only game to do it, but like we've talked about Her Story and how much I love that game. So you fucking give me a search bar, apparently I just get real into it.
Yeah, like you have this communicator and like you can like drag stuff from the communicator into the terminal and like search for people. And yeah, you can't imagine like Her Story is a good thing to touch on, but like just like acquiring names from people, like talking to them and then like having to search them in the computer and like go through results to like find out stuff about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you could see it like a game just all like based around that. But yeah, we get like a shallower version in this.
Yeah, and I think it has some. It's a little bit to do with the fact that there are two protagonists that you switch between, which goes a long way to sort of make it so only parts of the things that you're doing apply to half of the game.
Yeah.
So you end up kind of split. If it was more in depth, I feel like it would be a more Asriel focused game. But I don't know. It's still cool that it's in there. I feel like a lot of the stuff in this game, like the shooting mechanics, like the terminals, feel very like proof of concept-y.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, like there's like a point and click game and then like a couple of other like stray ideas they thought would be cool, like layered in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. Honestly, like I think we should touch on the shooting mechanics and then dive full force into the narrative that the game sets up.
I wanted to bring up real quick that I actually like. I have one thing I like, one thing I dislike about the actual pointing and clicking you do.
Okay.
I like that when you like right click on something to interact with it, you get all of your verbs and your inventory in one little box. Like I think that's convenient. And it's like it's pretty intuitive, like how to use them. I think like at least I did like fell into like, oh yeah, I can like kick things, like try my foot on things that make sense, and you're usually rewarded, and you're not like, how was I ever supposed to do that?
Yeah.
So I thought that was nice, but then I also hate that you can't just open the inventory; you have to click on something. So you got pluses, a plus and a minus there.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned this because I probably would have let it slide. But you don't fucking get it. You don't get to get one by me. Watching games. The inventory thing frustrated me because there were elements of the game where I felt like I had in my big smart brain figured out the solution to the problem, but it required me to use an item in the inventory and then realized that wasn't the solution because I couldn't independently use an item in the inventory. Like there wasn't an option to like when you could combine items in other games, like in other point and clicks, this doesn't really have that. So you like when I was like, oh, if I took the screwdriver and whatever else, I don't remember, and tried to combine them together, there was no option to do that. You couldn't look at the inventory to do it. So I had to search something else out. So yeah, it I guess in a way it means that like I should have been focusing my mental energy on things that were more apparent in the environment, but also at the same time it felt like a very valid solution was being denied to me by not being able to access the inventory, which is a bit lame. Full agree on the other stuff though. I like I'm a big fan of the old like Sierra games,
like King's Quest.
Yeah, where you have like all of the different verbs and like represented as like, you know, your eyes, you look at stuff, and then they always had like the goofy ones like you have a tongue, and then you would be like, can I lick that? And it goes, don't do that. Don't want to lick a door. In this game, it represents it as talking, which is probably wiser, but it's a little less funny. The kick really served for me that purpose. Also, I just want to mention, I guess this is kind of part of the shooting, because the shooting is like 90% of the time that you're going to die in the game. This is the point-and-click adventure game that will just straight kill you. It's not uncommon in the genre when taken as a whole, but it's like, to me, feels very old. I feel like older adventure games killed the player more often, and newer ones will just let you keep doing stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
And I thought it worked really well with the setting.
Yeah, no, it's appropriate in this kind of game.
But yeah, so the game has this like weird cover shooting. I didn't hate it. I thought it was fairly engaging, but when it became more complicated, like the final version of shooting where there's like multiple enemies and you can lean out both ways, I felt like the number of buttons on the screen was a bit like a little, I don't know, difficult to parse. But that's about it. For the most part, I enjoyed there being like a slightly different challenge on occasion.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is a little simple, I think, for what it is. And I think similarly to the terminals, I just kind of wish it would have like either been in there more or maybe not been in there at all. You know, like it falls on that kind of like middle ground. But kind of like we were saying though earlier, like even though it doesn't get like feel like it gets like fully fleshed out, it still kind of feels cool that it's there.
Yeah, like additive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good job. It does just feel like a lot of effort put into a system that doesn't get used very much. I guess that's kind of where I land on it.
It is nice that it gets used with both characters.
Yeah, and they get to make a narrative connection where when you're playing in the facility, I forget what it is called, Base 9. It's not that.
I don't remember what it's called either.
Yeah, whatever the facility that people get sent to is, you are training in weapons use, so they get to integrate the tutorial for the mechanic in a way that feels like narratively natural, which is more than you can say about a lot of tutorials, so I'll give them a passing grade for that, at least. It's a neat thing.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. But narratively, it's Mystery May, so we gotta talk about this fucking mystery that's going on. This game faked me out like 15 times,
really?
And I was really satisfied by it.
I had a JJ with Transistor moment with this game, where I immediately called the twist as being they're both the same guy.
Right.
I know, just for context, we played Transistor, and I guess spoilers for Transistor if you haven't played it and want to. You get 3, 2, 1, spoiler time. But at the beginning of the game, you pull a sword out of a dead body, and the sword, your main character's lost her voice, but the sword has a voice, and it talks to you and narrates things.
Right.
And JJ just like intuited that it was the voice of your dead boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like wild that he made that like into like that leap in logic, given that you have no context at the beginning of the game for any of that. But like I did that with this to the extent that like I just like I don't know if it's because I am a Gemini. It's like my zodiac sign, and I know that like in reference to like yourself, it's supposed to mean you have like two sides to your personality. So I was already kind of like thinking of it like that. But it actually took me probably like an hour and a half to realize that I was supposed to think that Delta 6 was my brother that I'm looking for.
Oh, right.
Like I didn't realize what the game wanted me to think.
Yeah. So I had I would say that I connected the dots vis-a-vis it being the same person during the like second Delta 6 part of the game, and was like, okay, the science fiction game. I think I used a little bit of like trope space to kind of explore like what I was thinking about, and made the connection like they are probably the same. But when I say the game through, I mean it did. It definitely had the wool. My eyes were were firmly covered by wool on that for like at least a few hours of gameplay. But it also just like had all of these different threads that I thought were going to be like the main thing, right? And so like, because the game opens with you looking for Matthias, and not really being certain exactly what it is that you're doing, and then when the game switches over and has a second protagonist, I should note at this point, I never look at the promotional material for games that we're covering if I haven't just already naturally seen it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a thing that I do to keep like the podcast unbiased, and more just like I don't do it for anything that I do, so it's kind of just a natural extension of my person. So I didn't know going in about the two protagonists thing.
Yeah, me neither, actually.
Yeah, so that was surprising. Finding Matthias's body and like having to get him like the drugs and stuff was surprising. I would have expected something different. That's a different guy. That it was the guy who owns the ship is the one that you find on the ground. So I even threw myself for a loop there at the end. But the game definitely kept me on hooks for the majority of its runtime. I was always interested in finding out what the next narrative thread was going to be.
Yeah, it's got that good like detective story intrigue. Yeah, like breaking into the apartment and finding the dead body or the passed out body.
Yeah.
Is a very memorable part of it, I think. Yeah, and like having to like infiltrate the gang and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of good moments, and like everything in the facility feels very cool too, in like a different way. It's got more of like a, almost like, I don't know if horror is the right word, but like a weird sci-fi like thing with like creepy implications behind the scenes sort of tone.
Yeah, it's like that dystopian sort of thing. It's got like Soylent Green is like a great example, I think, of something that straddles that line where it is a science fiction movie, but it's like unsettling.
Yeah, it's a little Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Also a good one. And I think, and it all works really well. There's a lot of things that go into why it works really well.
Yes.
I want to pick on kind of a minor one right now.
Sure.
That like I was just genuinely shocked by. I think the voice acting in this game, while not like Oscar level fucking blow you away great, one, surprising that it's there at all, if I'm being honest. I was like, this did not strike me as a game that was going to have full voice acting for every line of dialogue. And totally serviceable, and gave all of the characters a sort of like personality beyond what is shown in the text descriptions and on screen. Really brought it to life, which made me give a shit about them way more than I probably would have otherwise.
Yeah, it definitely makes it work, I think. It like enhances it. But yeah, and the main guy who voices Azrael and Delta 6 does a good job of playing two characters.
Yep, and making them sound sufficiently different.
Yeah.
And Azrael's
it was not his fault that I figured out the twist.
That's correct. Also, his Azrael voice is just like fucking chef's kiss detective voice.
Yeah, nice and pulpy. Yeah, it nails that, what it's going for sure.
Yeah, thought it was extremely good. That was just the one thing that I had to fucking to do. But the just like the way that the narrative sort of like threads everything together, I think is done pretty well. You may have guessed the twist very quickly, and I definitely guessed it before the game revealed it to me, though by not anywhere near as wide a margin. The reveal that the lady, the escapee, and the girl in the alleyway digging through dumpsters for the same person was absolutely like they said her name in the thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh. Like that very much took me by surprise.
I called that one before it happened as well, but not nearly as soon as the main twist.
That definitely surprised me. There are a lot
Like,
of
as soon as she became more significant, like you had to use her to get crawl under the thing, like it made her stand out as more significant character. So when I switched back to Delta 6, I was like, oh, I recognize that voice. I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
It just has a lot of mysteries within it. There's sub-mysteries within the mysteries.
Yeah, it's like a well-constructed mystery narrative for sure. It's braided, I think, is the literary term.
It is braided. How do you feel about the setting? We'll say just broadly.
I like that it's Pittsburgh. Which I also did not know. I think that's cool that it takes place somewhere that's like an hour away from here. That's always fun. Like it's still weird to me that Pittsburgh is like one of the places in The Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
I remember watching. This is a total non sequitur to pad out the length of this episode. I remember watching a video about The Last of Us, like some video essay on YouTube, and the guy kept saying that he didn't say that it was Pittsburgh. He said it was just like a different city. Like he was like, it takes place in Buffalo or something. And I remember being like, you're taking the one thing away from me.
And they're even like get to the Yellow Bridge and like, yeah, Pittsburgh has like a million yellow bridges.
Yeah, it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And that was frustrating. So I was also surprised to see Pittsburgh pop up.
Yeah.
You forget when you live in a small town that the nearby cities are actually like nationally well known.
Yeah.
Like the Steelers are like genuine, like people know about the team they've made.
And the Penguins.
Yeah, true.
But the Pirates aren't pulling their weight.
But you still get giddy. You hear fucking Pittsburgh. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah. But anyway, I think it's really well done. I think it's hard to do like a cyberpunk Blade Runner thing, one, without just being compared directly to Blade Runner, or two, like making it feel like futuristic in that kind of cyberpunk way where it's like kind of run down and futuristic at the same time. Like I think it's hard to do it well.
Yeah.
It's actually like I feel like there's surprisingly few examples, like good examples to point to, and I think this game does really well. And I think one thing that helps it a lot is the art style.
Yeah.
Like it, I think the like the 16-bit or however you want to describe it, kind of like low fidelity pixel art is like feels like more than just like a throwback kind of choice in this. Like it adds like a kind of grit to it that really works. I think it works better for this game than it does for like a lot of other pixel art games. Like it feels more intentionally chosen.
Yeah, I think I agree. It gives it gives it an old feeling, but also not the same old feeling that old point and clicks have. It does feel uniquely positioned sort of in that like mid to late 90s era of games that were probably more complicated than they should have been for the hardware they were on.
Yeah.
Like that's the vibe that I get from it, which kind of fits the cyberpunk theme of like technology gone past where humans can responsibly use it. We like if this was on the SNES, I'd be like, that is an irresponsible use of the hardware. But no, I totally agree. I think graphically it looks super good. It was relieving to be in the facility, which I think is not the goal they were going for, because it just wasn't so dour and raining all the time.
But it's creepy and clinical.
It sure is, yeah. I guess I prefer creepy and clinical than wet and dirty.
Like the HAL 9000 style robot that talks to you.
And the director's voice is also really good, in my opinion. I think he feels... I never thought that it was like an AI or something.
Yeah, me neither.
Like, he feels very human.
He emotes and stuff.
It's good shit. I like that a lot.
It's not like a robo voice. It does. The one negative thing I'll say about the art style, though, is it does lead to like just a couple of instances of like a little bit of pixel hunting.
Yeah. I want to call something out in the form of a question.
Yes.
The Socratic method.
What is your question?
So I played this on the phone,
Yeah.
which is an interesting experience.
And I played it on PC as God intended.
Yeah, the way that it was definitely designed to be played. I wasn't sure if everybody, hello, talking to the audience now. If you were following along at home, this episode is going to be pretty late, I would say.
Yeah.
And I was not in the state for a week. And during that period of time, I felt like if I don't finish this game, I better have it on something portable so I can finish it while I'm away. So I went with phone. And phone may not have been the choice. This game has a mechanic in it where if you tap and hold down on the screen, it'll highlight things you can interact with. It did not always highlight everything. I noticed there would be times when I would hold down and it would show me a bunch of stuff I could interact with, and then I would touch something else and it would be like, you want to kick this? I was like, okay, I didn't know this was even a thing here. And I want to know if you had the same problem or if it is a unique to phones glitch.
I don't think the PC version has that mechanic at all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Unless I'm just it's one of those classic me moments where it brought it up and then I promptly forgot about it and never used it.
While that is possible, I can also see why this would be implemented for phones.
I don't think that it has that. Like, I don't think you can highlight stuff in the environment.
Okay, interesting. That to me fucking closes the book on everything. It was just like, it was a mechanic they implemented because phones are more awkward to scan the environment with.
Smaller screen.
Yeah.
It's harder to see stuff.
And just stuff ended up getting missed when they were implementing it. That tracks in my head.
That does make sense.
Yeah. Back on the setting, though, and the theme, I guess, specifically, this being a cyberpunk story, it made me think, like you said, about Blade Runner, like a lot of things.
Yeah, it's very clearly going for Blade Runner. Like, Azrael looks like Harrison Ford.
He does. But there's this interesting, like, through line, and I think it's just sort of almost what the genre was designed for. When you look at stuff like Blade Runner, or for the gamers in the audience, like Deus Ex, cyberpunk narratives have a tendency to have this focus on, like, humanity, personhood, like what makes you a human being.
Yeah.
And so I liked seeing that again, because I have absolutely no respect for novelty or ingenuity. But used in this case, like, it's such a classic they are the same character thing, but when you use it in the context of a cyberpunk story, it takes on this new, like, element of it, because it's your memory that's being erased and then a new personality created. It's not the most unique narrative, but it fits so well in the setting, and it's very easy to just take in stride when it gets revealed in the story, you know? Like, at no point are you like, oh, that's so fucking contrived. You're like, that makes perfect sense.
No, it fits really well, because I feel like there's always, like, a theme of, like, at least in my head with the cyberpunk stuff, it's like we've kind of outlived our planet. And, like, what does that... It's like an identity thing. Like, what does that mean for us? It's usually, like, takes place on, like, like a fuck-to-death version of the Earth. And, like, the other planets that we can go to also just seem like it's just, like, scummy, shitty places.
Yeah.
It fits that, like, that kind of searching for identity. It's almost like an existential question of, like, where do we even fit in now?
Yeah. So it worked out really well for me. I thought that this story felt really at home in the setting, and it was cool to just see a nice little point-and-click game made well after the heyday of the genre. Sort of like tackle this in a even classic way for the genre.
Yeah. I guess another thing I wanted to mention is I think it's really impressive, or one of those things that I feel is, like, inspiring about certain kinds of little indie games is, like, I like how much this game gets out of its, like, limited art assets. Like, a lot of the facility is, like, the same rooms, and like like the Pittsburgh area is like a city block. Like there's not like a ton of different screens, but like it really gets a lot out of it. Like it never feels like repetitive or like another game we played called Sally Face. Its first couple of episodes are like in an apartment building, and it gets kind of old after a while. But that is also a good game. You should check it out. Also, Pittsburgh Connection, because the creator's from Pittsburgh.
That's true.
Yeah, so I think this handled it really well in like pacing out its narrative, and like the swapping back and forth helps a lot. And like I found that really impressive, that it just never felt like it got old.
Yeah, I wish that they had done less with the apartment building because of the identically laid out stairs and floors. But
Yeah.
I also kind of I almost want to give it a pass because for like narrative and theming reasons, because it's like cheap housing on this burned out shitty planet.
It all looks the same.
Yeah, it's just all mass produced sort of. So it makes sense the way that it is, but I don't necessarily want to run up the stairs anymore ever again, please.
Or go up and down the elevator.
Yeah. I forgot to mention this earlier to ask anyway. Did you make use of the swapping of the characters?
Oh yeah, I'm glad that you brought this up, because I think I might have forgotten, and I did want to talk about this. No.
Yeah, me neither.
Like I know, like I was watching a couple reviews, as I do before we record, to get like other people's opinions and stuff. But I know it was referenced because this game comes with a commentary track, which I didn't get to actually experience myself. But someone mentioned that they implemented that because they wanted to like combat that like classic point and click conundrum of like getting stuck and just quitting. And they wanted it to be that like if you got stuck, you could just switch to the other character if you wanted.
Right.
And you'd have something to do. Which I think is on paper sounds great, because it does suck to hit a wall in a point and click, because then you just can't play the game really anymore. You're just kind of wandering around. But yeah, like I think it does go against human nature, though. Like at least for me, and it seems like it's going to be the same for you. That I just played all the way up to where I couldn't go any further with one character and then switch to the other.
Yeah, I'll give the shout out that there was the first time that it was implemented, I did switch back to Azrael.
Yeah, me too. I switched back to him immediately.
And then did his whole thing before doing it. So I wouldn't have had the option to do that otherwise. So that's something. But for me personally, and like more power to anybody who wants to implement this kind of a thing in a game, because I'm sure it works for someone. But for me specifically, whenever I get stuck in a game, it's a lot easier for me to just sort of buckle down and just solve the problem. If I left and came back, I felt like there would be too many things that I had forgotten.
Yeah, I also have the same worry. I don't know. At least when we're doing games for the podcast, I feel like I wouldn't have that problem because I'm playing it in a short period of time. But I was just playing it for fun. It could be like a week in between times that you're playing. So that is like a real concern, I would think.
Yeah, there's also just an element of like, there's a lot of times in a point and click game, and there's just a genre wide problem where you just have to check all the stuff. You're like, I checked everything that seemed like it made sense to me. If I could shout out to that newspaper salesman who I talked to all the goddamn time. But like, you just have to go through and be like, all right, I look at this dumpster. Anything in there? No. I look at this window. Can I kick it? No, don't want to do that. That's fine. So you do all that. If I then stopped and switched back, I would have to check all that shit again.
Yeah.
Like, did I try kicking this window yet? Probably. Let's do it again just to be sure. So that might just be a personal neurosis, but
I feel like that's definitely a thing that like a lot of other people probably do too.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that with that. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't crazy.
Yeah, no. It's definitely not like totally as smooth as it could be. But yeah, that is more like genre wide problems than specifically this game.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention, just to make sure I don't forget to do it, is paying homage to another cyberpunk franchise other than just Blade Runner. The main cast of Cowboy Bebop is in this game as like Easter eggs, which I think is very strange. I like that show a lot, and I could definitely see its influence on this and like why you'd want to do that. But like I only found one. I found Ed on the top floor of one of the hotel buildings that you never have to go to, and it's mostly weird because of like the color palette is like wrong. Like it's like so much brighter colored and like not dour or like yeah, they just don't fit the tone, which makes it just feel really weird.
Yeah, it does seem strange.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, like, and I didn't look into this to know if this was this developer's first game or not.
I think it is.
But I feel like you do feel that pull to be like, this may be the only time I do this.
Yeah.
So I want to, like, stick in something that's going to, like, make me happy.
And they're pretty well hidden, so, like, I think it's fine.
Yeah, for example, I didn't find any of them.
Yeah, there you go.
So. I also wouldn't know if I found them, though. So
you would know. You'd be like, "This. What was with this weird character?"
Well, that's good.
Maybe. I don't know. I would think that it would stand out. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. I'm like probably ready to wrap this bad boy up.
Let me scan. Yeah, I think I'm ready too.
I think just one other thing, just on the since you mentioned the Cowboy Bebop characters, what about the characters who were more intentional in the story? Do you think that they were like, how do I describe this? Useful? Like, did you think that they gave the NPCs that you actually talk to enough like of a position in the world that you felt like you were getting useful information from them?
I think so. I actually liked that in like Delta 6's half, you actually had to like rely on other people and try to like, you know, like you're sneak. It has that feeling of like sneaking around. And it does make it feel like kind of like a like prison fiction where you're asking for favors from people, like you trading meal tickets, that kind of stuff. I thought that was cool. And then in Azrael's case, you never see the people you talk to like on your communicator until the end. So like that felt like there was like kind of like a contrast between those two things that I thought was interesting. But yeah, it did feel like the characters were more a part of the story than a lot of other point and clicks. Like a lot of others, it's just you doing everything. So yeah, I feel like I liked what they did with them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that you gave a little context on that because I may be falling into a bit of a bad apple and the bunch sort of situation because you're 100% correct about the Delta 6 segments. I think the parts in the prison, I love all of those characters and their existence and the fact that you have to actually think about what everybody is doing. You don't necessarily. It's good for the narrative to know those characters.
It was so satisfying. One of the most satisfying puzzle moments for me, it was noticing that there was a men's and women's section, and then actually having to go and get whatever the female character's name is. I can't remember. Epsilon 5?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Epsilon 5. You had to go get her and ask her to let you into the women's bunks or whatever, the cells. So that was just so satisfying that detail mattered.
Yeah.
Like, and I noticed it early.
Yeah, no, that shit is very good. And yeah, I think just in Delta 6's segments within the facility, I think a lot of the characters really feel really good and well used. I felt like in Azrael's section, with the exception of like the big named characters, everyone was the same guy. There may have been 2 or 3 guys, but they all fell into an archetype.
Yeah.
Like both the hotel bellhop and also the newspaper salesman were just like the helpful and unhelpful version of the same man.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't know, some of that stuff I was just like, I think because I did Azrael, then Delta 6, then Azrael, and then when it was supposed to switch back, I just did Azrael again. I spent a lot of time in that very like short period of just interacting with like mob member, guy selling shit, drug addict.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, like can I get some variation on this, like something a little bit more tangible? But yeah, you're 100% correct about Delta 6's section, though. The characters were super well fleshed out and important, so.
Yeah. I feel like I think that your observation is legitimate, but, like, I feel like I didn't even really think about it, because there is something, like an impersonal nature to, like, being in a city, I think.
Sure, yeah.
Like, I think it's intentionally, like, themed like that, where you don't really interact with people as much as Azrael.
Yeah. Plus, they're all hopped up on the juice.
Yeah, they're all juice heads.
Bunch of fucking juice heads. Do we have final exam thoughts? Can we escape the podcast by passing our final exam thoughts?
All right. That one, that's not terrible. Anyway, so my final exam thoughts are this game, like, it was one that I don't remember how I found it. I think it popped up in, like, a Steam queue or something, and I was like, because you played, like, Franbo, or I don't even know what.
Yeah.
But it just looked cool, like a detective game. Like, we do this podcast, we do this dumb mystery themed month. So I was like, okay, it could be a mystery May game. And it was just a total roll of the dice. Like, I didn't know, like, anything about it, and it ended up didn't disappoint. Like, it's exactly the kind of, like, interesting little indie game that I like to do for Pocket. It's, yeah, like I said, it kind of feels like inspiring almost. Like, it's this short game made by, like, a small team, and it's really ambitious. But it does it in such a way that, like, everything feels additive, I think, is how you put it earlier, and I think that's a good way to describe it. And there's a lot of the theming and the elements and the art feel really well considered. Like, it feels like a really inspired idea. It has a lot of good, like, detective intrigue. It is a good mystery story. It's a good cyberpunk story, which, I mean, I guess I don't really look for it that hard, but I feel like there aren't that many in my experience. So, yeah, I think it does all that kind of, like, the presentation and themes and, like, all that side of things, like, really well. And then on the mechanical side, it's a fairly standard point and click. Like, it's pretty solid. I do like it kind of tried to streamline the inventory. I like the idea of, like, switching between two characters. So yeah, like, I think the mechanical side holds up, and for me anyway, like, the story and the themes and everything are, like, the more exciting part about it. So yeah, I like this. It was a nice surprise. Didn't disappoint. But I was pleased once I got into it that I was enjoying it as much as I was.
Yep. I think yeah, this game surprised me on a lot of different levels. It is an older game. I was honestly kind of surprised by when it came out, and this to me felt like something that would have been more modern in this, like, very more simplified age of point and clicks. But getting into it, you immediately realize, like, this is, like, one of the point and click revival style games where it's going to take a lot from the genre that it's in. And that's kind of my thesis for a lot of this. This game feels, I don't want to say derivative because it's got such a negative connotation. It pulls...
Inspired by?
Yeah, it definitely pulls from the genres that it is that it is using. The point and click stuff is there, including that, like I mentioned, the very old Sierra style, like, multiple ways of interacting with every object in the environment. The cyberpunk narrative feels very at home in its genre. The look of the world in both the city and also the facility feel straight out of other media that you just sort of accumulate through your life. It's going to feel like a very at home kind of game. But the narrative is really competently written. The voice acting is great. It's got a sense of atmosphere to it, and I think these all sort of pull it ahead of the pack, so in a way, so to speak. It doesn't feel like something that is trying to use nostalgia of the point and click genre to do something. It feels like it has something to say itself and says it really well, sometimes with real human voices. So yeah, I really like this game. I really enjoyed my time with it, and make no mistake, this game doesn't break down walls. If you are not already predisposed to like a point and click adventure game, this isn't going to be the game that really fucking breaks through to you.
The shooting mechanics aren't going to make it make it do it for you.
No. But if you do like point and clicks and have not played this one, it's one I would absolutely recommend to you. So you can only play through Grim Fandango and Day of the Tentacle so many times, really. You got to get something new going on. Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening to NOCLIP Pocket this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about Pac-Man 2, The New Adventure.
I think there's a plural.
Yeah, all right, that's the one. That's the two.
This one was suggested in our Discord, so if you also want to suggest a game, we have a suggestions tab for that. But as far as I know, like, Pac-Man 2 is really weird. In that, like, you don't play. It's like a weird second person game.
You don't play it. You experience.
You don't really play as Pac-Man. Like, you just try and suggest for him to do stuff. Mm-hmm. It's really weird. We'll get into it. I don't know a ton about it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm just always excited. And also, yeah, jump back. This is a short Mystery May month, so pop back in.
Yeah, we're
next
very
time
busy
for fucking. Another game with a strange title, Disco Elysium. So look forward to that one also. Got to keep the Mystery May together.
Yes.
It may be small, but it's strong in unity.
Mm-hmm. You tie two reeds together. Etc., etc.
Etc., etc. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at NoClip Podcast or at splattershot.pro. There you can find our email address, our Twitter account, the Discord where you can talk about the games or suggest new ones for us to play. You can find our YouTube, which contains all of our past episodes, including ones on Grim Fandango, on The Cat Lady, and other point and clicks. Mm-hmm. We do them on occasion. And
Broken Age.
Yeah, Broken Age. We Harvester.
Yeah. We do like them a lot. We just try not to oversaturate
because
the podcast with them.
We know the audience for that genre is very small.
Yes.
Fucking lick that like button.
Use your foot to step up onto that bar so that you can then use your hand to grab the fire escape and ring that bell.
And ring the bell.
I couldn't pull any F terms out of my ass, so
good.
I will accept that one.
Except farts.
You got me on that one.
And scene.